This video was created to document the City of Orlando's false statements to the public regarding the Pulse Nightclub's unpermitted renovations and code violations. This is a case of public corruption that has allowed the owners of the Pulse Nightclub to skate away from code violations and illegal renovations that hindered the escape and rescue of shooting victims. As such, this is a grave injustice to victims of crime, most of whom were either black or brown and LGBTQ. In this video, we will show you that the City of Orlando has made false claims to Orlando Sentinel reporters that cannot be reconciled with what is documented in their own public records. Why? Because for years, the City of Orlando allowed the Pulse nightclub to operate in violation of city codes, and they knew it. If this truth was exposed, that the city allowed the Pulse nightclub to operate with code violations and unpermitted renovations for years, ultimately leading to the death and injury of Pulse patrons, it would have been a major scandal for the City of Orlando. This information would have also placed the City of Orlando in legal jeopardy. So, the City of Orlando has worked diligently to mislead the public in an effort to cover it all up. The first time we found out that the city lied to the public was on July 17th, 2016, about a month after the shooting. Following a nightclub's task force meeting hosted by the Orlando Police Department, Orlando Sentinel reporter Alyssa Cherney, who now works for the Chicago Tribune, wrote to Officer David Arnott following the meeting. Quick question about something you said that's been lingering in my mind. You made mention of barbacks being vigilant to ensure that trash cans or other materials they discard while working don't clog pathways to the exit. Were you speaking in generalities or referencing something specific about the Pulse evacuation? Before responding to Ms. Cherney, Officer Arnott wrote to the Orlando Police Department's Public Information Officer, Michelle Guido, and asked how he should respond. He said in the email he was speaking in generality. However, photos of Pulse taken after the shooting clearly show that trash cans did, indeed, block the exit route at Pulse, another spot in the club where victims were trapped during the shooting by the unpermitted 6-foot-tall fence as they tried to escape. Miss Guido, PIO, gave Officer Arnott the green light to respond. However, Heather Fagan, Deputy Chief of Staff in the Office of the Mayor, intervened and said, "I think the OPD PIO should respond. I don't want reporters going directly. They need to follow our process." Why didn't the city tell Miss Cherney that there were, in fact, trash cans littering one of Pulse's exit routes, and that victims were trapped in this narrow alley and storage area as they tried to flee? This would have been truthful. This is what happened. Why keep this from reporters? Reporter Alyssa Cherney would go on contributing to the Orlando Sentinel article detailing Pulse's unpermitted fence.
Sunday, June 12th, 2016. The time, 2:56 a.m.
Emergency 911, this is Joe on a recorded line.
This is over here by Club Pulse in downtown Orlando. I was going over to the scene. I had an officer stop me, and he told me to call 911 and text my sister. She's inside with 3 of her other friends. He just told me to constantly get her to keep texting me and to let you guys know exactly what's going on from the inside.
Okay, what's your sister's name? And where is she in the club?
From what she's told me briefly is that she's in but near some trash or some garbage. I've never been there before. I don't know how the place looks inside, but
are you still in touch with her right now through text message or anything?
Yeah, I'm.
Okay, can you try to find out? Can you ask her what room she might be in or where? Because we need to know where everyone's at.
They know. They're talking back in the dressing room. Tell them to stay.
I'm asking her right now.
Okay.
They have to go past the bathroom and that's Lauren.
Is she okay? Did she say if she was injured?
She's just hiding with her friends. From what she's told me so far, she doesn't seem injured or anything like that. They just heard multiple gunshots, and she just hid. She's like I said, she's with two of her other friends, and they're just hiding near some trash or in some trash.
Okay. Try to find out a better location where she is. The officers are in there now looking for people. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying right now. I don't even know if her phone is ringing. I don't want to give her a call.
No, don't call her. Don't call her. She's not text messaging you anymore?
She hasn't texted me back.
Okay.
We had first pushed our way through the door, and it was a small alleyway in regards of a lot of people trying to get out, and it was really, really a lot of traffic. So me and this tall gentleman, we just had the idea to close the door shut and push against to make sure if it was coming this way, because the bullets were getting louder, it was getting closer. We just kept the door shut, tried getting everyone as much space and as much time to get out, because it was getting louder and getting closer. And I looked to my left, there was a good 20 people piling on top of each other, trying to exit out a small closet-looking door to the parking lot.
You were worried about getting trampled, in other words. So many people were coming into this small little corridor.
I didn't care about getting trampled. I felt like that was enough time, and people made their way through, and then there was a gaping hole in the fence that someone busted through, and people figured out another route.
And then I saw people start pouring into the back staff hallway, and they just started pack everyone.
Yusuf could see a life-saving option beyond the crouched, panicky people. Two doors. One led back into the club, the other led out to safety. But anyone, had to unlatch it.
The second time the City of Orlando lied to Orlando Sentinel reporters was a few days later on July 21st, 2016. Crystal Hayes, who now works for USA Today, emailed Heather Fagan, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Office of the Mayor, about Pulse's unpermitted fence. Via email, Ms. Fagan told Ms. Hayes that, without a permit, which would include a review of plans, it is hard to say whether or not the fence could have met code. However, it wasn't hard to say whether or not the fence violated code. All Ms. Fagan had to do was read the city codes and read the city's records, which Ms. Hayes did, and on July 31st, 2016, she reported that the unpermitted 6-foot-tall fence did indeed violate city codes. Her article states, according to a 3-page memo sent to the owners in 2010, city officials noted that 2 windows were blocked by the unpermitted privacy fence, which violates a portion of the city's land development code requiring the street-facing side of the building to have a minimum of 15% transparent materials, such as windows. In a separate internal city memo, officials also questioned the height of the fence and quoted a portion of the land development code regarding front yard setbacks. The height of the fence was a violation, which the city knew and had documented. Other city records also show that the fence violated city codes. Code enforcement even photographed the violation from multiple angles. On June 19, 2016, just 4 days before this email exchange, a small group of attorneys working for the City of Orlando compiled a list of Pulse's violations that the city had on record. This legal document states that the fence blocks minimum required transparency. So, contrary to what Ms. Fagan told Ms. Hayes, the city did in fact know that the fence violated city code. Ms. Fagan also stated to Ms. Hayes, to our knowledge, the work done without permits did not create life safety issues or limit the ability for people to get in or out of the club. This too was not true or based on any analysis, investigation, or comprehensive building inspection done by the city. We can see from photographic evidence and interviews with survivors conducted by the media directly after the shooting that the fence did indeed hinder escape.
I managed to jump. I jumped up. I ran to that back wall back there. I jumped on a silver table, high silver table, and I hopped the fence. And I ran to the 7-Eleven.
Then I unfroze myself and then jumped over the back wall that everyone was trying to get out of. I just jumped over and just kept running.
After, because there was a whole bunch of people that had gone out and the privacy fence went down, and that's when everybody was just like going.
Other instances of the fence hindering escape are documented in Miss Hayes' reporting. The Orlando Sentinel even published a photo showing a dead body laying in the nightclub's outdoor patio, which was enclosed by the unpermitted fence. The patio itself and the outdoor bar were also unpermitted. In the same list of Pulse's violations drafted on June 19, 2016 by city attorneys, there is an item dated May 8, 2013 that cites, quote, hazardous conditions pertaining to the building's plumbing. Records indicate that the plumbing inside a Pulse was also modified without permits and was never inspected. The city was also notified by a reputable fire alarm company that there were life safety issues at the club. Even in the absence of a comprehensive building inspection conducted by the city, there is evidence that the unpermitted work created life safety issues and limited patrons' ability to flee the club to safety during the shooting. A document from 2010 states, a detailed review of the fire protection requirements will be performed when plans are submitted for permitting. Since the permitting was never done, there are no records of a detailed review or building inspection by the city's permitting division of the unpermitted work at Pulse discovered in 2010. The only inspections released between 2010 and 2016, the time between the discovery of the unpermitted work and the mass shooting, were the fire inspections conducted by the Orlando Fire Department, which represents a different kind of inspection. Even then, Timothy Johnson of the Permitting Division interfered with the fire department's inspections, telling them that they did not need new building plans for the unpermitted work that changed the building's layout. Timothy Johnson, who failed to bring the nightclub into compliance for years, was promoted after the shooting and is now Deputy Director of the Economic Development Department. Even after the shooting, the city called off an inspection meant to document the violations inside the club, likely because it was worried about its own liability, as there is an email trail between attorneys discussing what must be released to the public and what they can keep hidden. Calling off the inspection, the sole purpose of which was to document violations at Pulse after the shooting, is part of the cover-up. It would not have worked to the advantage of the city to document Pulse's violations and conduct a criminal investigation. The city would have implicated itself for liability. That appears to be the reason why city attorneys drafted legal documents of Pulse's violations internally for potential litigation in the aftermath of the shooting instead of inspecting the building in an effort to hold Pulse owners accountable. This is also why they try to keep these documents hidden from public view using Statute 119071, which states that legal documents are only exempt until the conclusion of litigation or adversarial proceedings. The very reason city and building codes exist is to ensure life safety. The fact that the city of Orlando did not bring Pulse into compliance would have exposed the city legally or worse. In summary, Miss Fagan in the office of the mayor lied to Miss Hayes, the Orlando Sentinel reporter, by saying that the city did not know whether or not the fence was a violation of city code, and that to their knowledge, the 6-foot-tall fence did not limit the victim's ability to get out of the Pulse nightclub. The city knew that a portion of the fence was knocked down by survivors who were trying to escape. The third time that we know the public was lied to by the city of Orlando was in 2021, after local news agencies finally reported on our efforts to document the code violations and unpermitted renovations at the Pulse nightclub that hindered escape and rescue. For this reporting, new questions were pitched to the city of Orlando about Pulse's conditional use violations. When questioning the city of Orlando about Pulse not having approval to operate as a nightclub, the city told Orlando Sentinel reporter David Harris that the city does not have a permit category for nightclubs. While this is a true statement, it does not pertain to the issue at hand with Pulse. Pulse was required to have a conditional use permit due to zoning codes and was approved to operate only as a martini bar and restaurant. The conditional use permit also states that Pulse was not allowed to charge regular cover fees so that it would not become a full or part-time entertainment establishment. They did. Victims of the shooting paid a $10 cover, and so did the shooter, who is documented paying the cover fee on surveillance video that was released in March 2018 during the trial of his wife, Noor Salman. The city of Orlando knew about all of these violations and they were documented, contrary to what the city claims.
There was nowhere to go. There was no exit. There was no window to break to get out. So I just ran into the bathroom.
Orlando Sentinel reporter Kate Santich followed up with the city and asked specifically about the conditional use permit. The city responded on June 18, 2021 with the following statement. For background, the city does not have a designation in our code for nightclubs. They are classified as eating and drinking establishments. Specific to this property, the owner applied for a conditional use permit, which was approved to allow for an eating and drinking establishment with more than 51% of its revenue from the sales of alcoholic beverages within 1,000 feet of a church. The complaint, logged with code enforcement in June 2010, alleged the establishment was in violation of the CUP, but there was no evidence found to support that allegation. The addition of a dance floor would not have been a violation of the conditions of the CUP. We have no records of any other complaints and no records of any cited violations of the CUP. This is a false statement that conflicts with the city's own records. We will dissect this statement line by line. The first sentence, the city does not have a designation in our code for nightclubs, they are classified as eating and drinking establishments, is not supported by public records. In an email about Pulse, written on June 24, 2010, by Jason Burton, chief planner of the city of Orlando, he stated, "A new CUP is needed in order to operate as a nightclub, and that a nightclub is a different land use than a restaurant and is considered a different use on the city's use matrix." Here is a side-by-side comparison of the chief planner's understanding of Pulse's violation of its CUP in 2010, before the shooting, compared to the City of Orlando's PIO's response in 2021, 5 years after the shooting. Clearly, the City of Orlando is lying again. Nightclubs are not considered eating and drinking establishments, and this is documented in other city records as well, which we will continue to show. The second sentence, the owner applied for a conditional use permit, which was approved to allow for an eating and drinking establishment with more than 51% of its revenue from the sales of alcoholic beverages within 1,000 feet of a church, is misleading. Records from the Municipal Planning Board show that the conditional use permit approved Pulse specifically as a restaurant, not just generally as an eating and drinking establishment. The Pulse nightclub was not a restaurant, and the city knew this. The nightclub did not serve food. There was no eating being done at the establishment. Orlando Police Department officers were regularly hired to work the nightclub security, which records indicate was insufficient, and they knew Pulse was a nightclub and not a restaurant. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the municipal board's conditional use permit documentation and the city's 2021 statement. What is key here is the emphasis on restaurant use throughout the Municipal Planning Board's document. It also states that cover charges and entry fees were only permissible on an occasional basis for special events. It includes a proposed menu for the restaurant and martini bar, and the approved floor plan, which does not show a dance floor. The third part of the city's recent statement claims there was no evidence found to support the allegation that Pulse was in violation of its conditional use permit when the complaint was logged on June 21, 2010, and that the addition of a dance floor would not have been a violation of the conditions of the CUP. This is misleading, a reflection of the city's incompetence, and a false statement. When the complaint was logged in June 2010, the inspector by the name of Bernard stated that Pulse had the full approval to open as a nightclub in 2003. We know from the city's own records that Pulse did not have approval in 2003 to open or operate as a nightclub. In the thousands of pages of records we have obtained, there is not a single document that supports this false claim. Records actually document the opposite, that Pulse did, in fact, operate in violation of its conditional use permit in multiple ways. First, by operating as a nightclub with a dance floor without approval and against the conditions of the CUP. The illegal addition of a dance floor without permits meant Pulse would no longer be operating as an eating and drinking establishment. Instead, using the city's own terms, it would be operating as a nightclub, a dance hall, which the city considered not to be an eating and drinking establishment, but indoor recreation. The second way the Palmas were documented to have violated the conditions of the CUP was by altering the building's approved floor plans without permits and without approval. These unpermitted renovations included the dance floor, the fence, the outdoor patio bar, the second floor, and many more. Altering the building significantly with new construction was not just a violation of the CUP, but these unpermitted renovations were illegal and a threat to public safety in and of themselves, especially when the unpermitted work was never fully inspected by building inspectors. The third way the Palmas are documented to have violated the conditions of the CUP was by regularly charging a cover, which thereby, in the city's own words, converted the space to full or part-time entertainment use, thereby violating the conditions of approval for Pulse laid out by the Municipal Planning Board. And this is not the first time the city's inspectors made mistakes at Pulse. During a fire inspection done at Pulse on May 21st, 2016, the inspector marked "Doors are inoperable." In this instance, the city quickly and publicly claimed that this was a reporting mistake, just 2 weeks after the shooting. They said that contrary to what the fire inspections reported, all the doors were functional and none of them were blocked. The difference now, in 2021, 5 years after the shooting, is that instead of admitting to mistakes made, The city has chosen to use carefully worded language that misleads the public into thinking that Pulse was not operating in violation of its conditional use permit. The city of Orlando is actually covering up the documented truth. There are records dating back to 2004 showing that Pulse would be violating its conditional use permit by operating as a nightclub and by having a dance floor. In a letter dated May 12, 2004, Dean Grandin, the city's planning director, noted that a nightclub is not considered an eating and drinking establishment and is instead considered indoor recreation, which requires conditional use approval, especially in proximity to residential neighborhoods. The letter also states, the Municipal Planning Board approval was based on the floor plan submitted by the applicant that showed a full kitchen, a small wine bar, and extensive dining areas and a sample menu that included sandwiches, brunch, and dinner items, as well as beer, wine, and cocktails. The floor plans now include a dance floor, stage, and nightclub-type lighting. Because of these items, the letter notes, the property was not consistent with, nor did it meet the conditions of, the existing conditional use approval of the Municipal Planning Board. Therefore, the unpermitted dance floor was a violation of the CUP, and again, a nightclub is considered indoor recreation by the city, not an eating and drinking establishment as the city now claims. Rather than initiate a new application for a conditional use permit for a nightclub, Rosario Poma responded to this letter with a revised building plan that showed the dance floor was removed. While it was removed from the building plans, it was never removed from the actual building, allowing Pulse to operate as a nightclub in violation of the CUP. In the years that followed, Pulse's conditional use permit was never amended and a new conditional use permit was never issued, which anyone can verify using the city's permit database. In the last part of the City of Orlando's statement, the city said, we have no records of any other complaints, other than the June 2010 complaint. This is also not true. In fact, on May 18, 2010, at least 30 residents from the surrounding neighborhood, according to the city's own records, met with the Orlando Police Department and Rosario Poma at the Orlando Police Headquarters to voice concerns about the nightclub. This was documented not only in city records, but also in The Watermark, a local gay publication. One of the neighbors who attended that meeting even wrote an email to the city detailing the issues with Pulse after the shooting on October 24, 2016, including saying that Rosario Poma once came, quote, in our driveway, yelling and wanting to know what we had against his club. So the city does in fact have records of other complaints about the nightclub and its use as such. They just do not have any additional formal complaints recorded by the permitting division, just as they do not have building inspections of Pulse's unpermitted work that they knew about for 6 years. Another key piece of documentation that shows the city cannot refute that Pulse owners violated their conditional use permit by operating Pulse as a nightclub was the summary document created by Lillian Scott, director of the mayor's business assistance team, titled 1912 South Orange Avenue, the address of the Pulse nightclub. This document was drafted in the months following a site visit at Pulse on May 13, 2010, 2 days after the city was notified of Pulse's grand reopening with its unpermitted renovations. This document, sent to city officials on August 20th, 2010, provided a list of compliance issues, including issues and violations of Pulse Nightclub's conditional use permit. Under the title Issues with Approved Conditional Use Permit, the city reiterated what other documents stated. The floor plan, approved as part of the conditional use permit, is not consistent with the most recent floor plan submitted with a fire permit. The most recent floor plan submitted shows a dance floor, 2 sound speaker areas, 2 bars, 2 lounge areas, and an office. A number of the conditions above are operational conditions, and compliance with those conditions will require a site visit during business hours. It is important to note that the building plans submitted with the fire permit were different than the nightclub's 2010 building plans that were provided to the media, and do not show the nightclub's unpermitted second floor. Both of these building plans showed unpermitted work. At the conclusion of the document, the city provided the Pomas with 2 options to correct their violation of the CUP. Option 1. Comply with the existing CUP and convert the space to conform to the approved CUP floor plan. We know this was never done because 20 people were murdered on the unpermitted dance floor on June 12, 2016. Option 2. The applicant can choose to amend the existing CUP and request CUP approval to allow a nightclub. This too was never done, and there are no records showing an amended CUP or new CUP approving use of Pulse as a nightclub. Again, this is another document that shows that the addition of the dance floor was a violation of the CUP because it transformed the restaurant and martini bar into a nightclub, and it altered the approved building plans. To date, the City of Orlando has never conducted a criminal investigation. In similar situations, like the Ghost Ship Warehouse and Station nightclub, where owners and leaseholders operated nightclubs illegally and with unpermitted renovations, a criminal investigation sent them to prison charged with manslaughter. In Orlando, the city continues to cover up the violations and unpermitted renovations that hindered escape and rescue. It is also covering up its own negligence and allowing the Pulse nightclub to operate for years in violation of city codes and with hazardous, unpermitted renovations. Why hasn't the city held Rosario and Barbara Poma responsible? Because of liability. Records show that the City of Orlando knew of the unpermitted renovations and code violations at Pulse for years and failed to bring the nightclub into compliance. But there's more. After the shooting, Pulse owner Barbara Poma started the One Pulse Foundation, where she has taken more than $258,000 in salary. Mayor Buddy Dyer, who has knowledge of Pulse's violations, serves on the foundation's Chairman's Ambassadors Council, along with former Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs, who approved a $10 million tourism tax grant to the foundation in 2019. The chairman of the One Pulse Foundation is Earl Crittenden, an eminent domain attorney who since 2009 has held a voluntary role in the office of the mayor as Chief Protocol Officer. He is also of counsel to the Gray Robinson Law Firm, the same law firm that sponsors One Pulse Foundation events and that was presided over by City Attorney Mayanne Downs. Mayanne Downs is City Attorney, former president of Gray Robinson, counsel to the firm, and a shareholder. She was installed as city attorney by Buddy Dyer himself and is a personal friend of the mayor. She even represented him in his first divorce. In July 2016, when Miss Downs was president of Gray Robinson, she helped compile the list of violations and unpermitted renovations at Pulse in that legal document we spoke of earlier for the City of Orlando. When we requested this legal document in 2020, they released it completely redacted. However, we pressed Mayanne Downs for the unredacted documents and showed that the legal statute the city was using to keep the documents redacted was inapplicable. Roughly a week later, the Records Department provided the document without redactions. Luckily, we read the statute and did not accept the city's initial response. As a Gray Robinson shareholder, the city attorney, Mayanne Downs, has a financial conflict of interest in releasing documents that would put the law firm's reputation into question due to its partnership with Pulse owner Barbara Poma, who is responsible for the violations at her club, and the One Pulse Foundation. Yet she continues to make legal decisions on what public records can be released regarding documented negligence surrounding Pulse Nightclub. And there's even more. After the shooting, responding Orlando Police Chief John Mina was elected Orange County Sheriff. After winning the election, Rosario Poma joined him on the board of the Orange County Sheriff's Foundation, a nonprofit that raises funds to support the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This also appears to be a financial conflict of interest and a cause for concern when the very person in charge of starting a criminal investigation has instead partnered with the person who should have been investigated. In 2002, Pulse co-owner Rosario Poma was positioned against the Orange County Sheriff's Office and the FBI by serving as a character witness to Jesse Molly, who is being investigated for multiple crimes. To date, law enforcement never investigated the unpermitted renovations and code violations at the Pulse nightclub. Even now, 5 years after the shooting, the city of Orlando chooses to lie to the public rather than hold the owners accountable as they attend public events together and use the shooting to increase their social standing and advance their professional and political careers. The United States Department of Justice Fraud and Public Corruption Unit is supposed to be dedicated to protecting the rights of victims of crime while deterring criminal wrongdoing. Where are they?